Okay, so anyway, my wife and I used to go to this church back in Minnesota, and church would happen first, okay? And then Sunday school would happen second. But there was a half an hour, and they had coffee as far as the eye could see, and donuts and cookies and everything, and punch in case you didn't like coffee. But anyway, sometimes the pastor would go long and it cut into the fellowship time. I know, right? Well, some of us have this idea, well, if he's going to cut into the fellowship time, we're going to borrow from the Sunday school time, okay? Because we had to have time to talk, drink our coffee, and such. But if you were in fifth grade, you didn't want to miss the 10:30 deadline because this teacher, once it hit 10:30, the door closed, the door locked. Didn't matter who you were. Didn't matter why you were late. Didn't matter if you had a good excuse. If you weren't in that room, you were out. No negotiating, no just this once. It was over. Of course, my daughter Ashley later admitted that she went there late on purpose so she didn't have to go to Sunday school. You know, you think you're safe when you confess to your parents years later. Maybe that's not always the case. But anyway, it got me thinking. Once that door closes, it's done. That's exactly how they felt in John 11. Lazarus had been dead 4 days. The stone was in place. The tomb is sealed. In their minds, it's done. They thought, Jesus is late. The moment has passed. There's nothing more that can be done. But here's what John wants us to see. With Jesus, the door is never closed. Because when Jesus speaks, even what is dead must come back to life. Let us read John 11:38 to 42. Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an order, for he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe you sent me." Before the miracle, before Lazarus come out, we slow down. This story has been building for 44 verses. It began with a sickness. Lord, the loved one you love is sick. And Jesus stayed 2 more days. And Lazarus died. 4 days in the tomb. Final, no hope. Martha met him. Lord, if you'd been here. Faith and disappointment in one sentence. Jesus declared, "I am the resurrection and the life." And then Mary came. Mary wept. Mary fell at his feet. She totally lost it. And then Jesus wept. Then he stood at the tomb. It was a cave and a stone lay against it. Inside a wrapped body. 4 days. Can you imagine if you went away on vacation and you left chicken on your counter and you came back? Can you imagine the smell? Oh my goodness. The smell would be real. Then Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Not stand back, not watch this. You move it. Martha said, "Lord, this is going to smell." In other words, this will hurt. This will expose what we buried. You see, in their world, you sealed tombs. You didn't reopen them. The stone meant it's over. Jesus said, roll it away, because Jesus displays resurrection power. He calls for obedient faith. He didn't need their help. He invited their trust. What stones have we sealed? The conversation we avoid, the addiction we hide, the grief we bury, the relationship we gave up on. We say it's done. Then Jesus says, move it. And we answer, Lord, that will stink. But Jesus reminds us, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? Faith rolls stones. Power raises the dead. So Martha doesn't say, I don't believe. Get this. She says, Lord. She honors him, but fear slips in. You know what? Most doubt sounds reasonable. 4 days. The body is rotting. It's embarrassment. She isn't rebellious. She's afraid. Faith and fear can coexist. Moments earlier, she confessed, you are the Christ. Now she says, don't open the tomb. You see, strong believers still struggle with fear. You can love Jesus and still hesitate. That's not hypocrisy, that's humanity. Fear narrows vision. Martha sees the smell, the decay, the time. She forgets, I am the resurrection and the life. Fear makes the tomb look bigger than Jesus. But Jesus responds gently. He doesn't shame her. He reminds her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? Fear forgets. Jesus reminds. Before Jesus speaks life, he calls us to trust him. Fear says it's over. Jesus says, watch me. When Jesus speaks, even what is dead must come back to life. You know what? Fear doesn't make us hesitate. It changes what we see. Martha sees the smell, the decay, the time, the damage. She forgets, I am the resurrection and the life. Fear narrows your focus. It makes the tomb look bigger than Jesus. That's what fear does. It zooms in on the problem and blurs out the promise. We do the same. We say, Lord, I've tried. Lord, I've failed before. Lord, I can't take more disappointment. Lord, I'm afraid to hope. We're not rejecting God. We're reacting to pain. Fear whispers, don't go back there. You survived this once. Don't reopen it. It sounds protective, but it's limiting. Jesus doesn't shame Martha. He doesn't rebuke her. He reminds her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? In other words, remember who I am. Remember what I said. Remember what you confessed. She forgets. Fear forgets. Jesus reminds. That's our Savior. He doesn't push anxious people away. He walks them back to trust. And when our focus returns to him, faith rises again. I have a story for you. And I was going to say I'll be honest with you, but I have to say one thing. When I say I'm going to be honest with you, you might say, well, when were you not honest with us? So I'm just going to leave it with, I'm going to tell you a story. So my wife taught all 4 of our kids how to drive. Not me. I was too nervous. I still am. I'm the guy grabbing the door handle, pressing the imaginary brake, praying under my breath, Lord, please don't let me die. Denise is calm. She's steady. She's patient. She's the one God used for that job. But I'll never forget when Noah was learning how to drive. He was so nervous, he had to wear gloves on the steering wheel because his hands were sweating like crazy, because he was scared, because he didn't trust himself yet. Every turn was tense. Every stop sign was stressful. Every merge felt like a crisis. But Denise stayed calm. She kept saying, "You got this. I'm right here." And over time, the gloves came off. He didn't wake up fearless. He learned to trust. He learned through practice. He learned through encouragement. He learned by stepping out. That's Martha at the tomb. Jesus says, "Roll away the stone." And she's gripping the wheel. She's nervous. She's sweating. "Lord, it's going to smell. Lord, this is risky. Lord, I'm scared." And Jesus is saying, "Trust me. I'm right here. You got this." Some of us, we're still driving with our gloves on. We love Jesus. We follow Jesus, but we're afraid to trust him fully with our future, with our family, with our health, with our past, with our calling. And Jesus is patient. He doesn't shame us. He doesn't rush us. He walks with us until one day the gloves come off. Before Jesus speaks life, he teaches us to trust. And when we do, even what is dead must come back to life. So now the stone is gone. Fear has been confronted. Faith has been challenged. Jesus has prayed. Everyone is watching. No one knows what's coming. This is the moment. And now, John lets us hear the voice of Jesus. Let's pick up in verse 43. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." This is the turning point. Up to now, tears, questions, fear, waiting. Now we hear a voice. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." That's it. No ritual, no build-up, no ceremony, just a command. He spoke with authority. John says he cried out. Not a whisper, not a suggestion, a command spoken into death itself. Inside that cave with a lifeless body, 4 days of decay, a sealed verdict. In human experience, death always wins. No one expects the tomb to answer. Then Jesus speaks, a personal and powerful call. He doesn't say, "Come out." He says, "Lazarus." It's personal, it's specific, it's intentional. This is not chaos. This is authority. You know, there are some that said, if he had not used the name Lazarus, if he had just said, "Come out," you would have had all these graves with people coming out. That's how powerful Jesus is. That's how powerful our God is. He can do anything he wants, whenever he wants. So obviously he had to use Lazarus' name directly. Earlier Jesus said, all who are in their graves will hear his voice. This is a preview of coming attractions. There's going to come a day. Oh, this is so cool. And maybe this day is when I have even passed away and all of you have passed away. Our spirits are up in heaven with Jesus. We're just having the greatest time. But then it gets better. That day, all our bodies are going to be resurrected. Actually, Everybody on the face of the earth is going to be reunited with their body. But here's the thing. Some people are going to be resurrected to judgment. Those people who do not know Jesus are going to be resurrected to judgment and face eternity in the lake of fire. While those of us that know Jesus, we have him as an advocate. You know, when I was little, I broke a tool of my dad's and I hid it. I was guilty. I'm innocent of that. I'm innocent of pushing my sister in the mud. Every terrible thing I've ever done, because I have Jesus as my advocate. So that day is going to be awesome. We're going to be reunited with our bodies. They are going to be perfect bodies. Although there's one question I really want to know. Are the bald guys in church going to have hair on their perfect heavenly bodies? Probably not the biggest question ever, but just kind of wondering. Lazarus hears. Death step inside. No contest. John records no struggle. No delay, no resistance, no battle. Just command and response. Because when the Creator speaks, creation listens. The one who said, "Let there be light," now says, "Come out." Same voice, same power. When Jesus speaks, reality responds. Storms obey Jesus. Demons obey Jesus. Disease obeys Jesus. Death obeys Jesus. Death is not sovereign. Jesus is. Some of us live like death has the final word. The death of dreams, relationships, hope, joy, calling. We seal the tomb and say, it's over. But when Jesus speaks, it's not. Church, this is why we say when Jesus speaks, even what is dead must come back to life. Because his word carries absolute authority. And Jesus cries, "Lazarus, come out." And something extraordinary happens. The man who has just died. Now, all of you have probably been in a funeral before, and you know a dead person ain't just going to come out of the tomb. Don't miss that. The man who died came out. Not improving, not recovering. He was D-E-A-D, dead. Lazarus contributes absolutely nothing. What part did Lazarus play? None. He didn't pray. He didn't decide. He didn't try harder. He was dead. Now, I'm speaking to more than just Lazarus here. I'm speaking to all of you before you became a Christian. Dead people don't perform. Dead people need resurrection. Grace in living color. This is the gospel in picture form. In Ephesians, you were dead, but God made you alive. Salvation isn't self-help. It's resurrection. Lazarus is a living sermon. Jesus does the work. And notice the flow. Jesus walks. Jesus weeps. Jesus prays. Jesus commands. Jesus gives life. Lazarus responds because life came first. He doesn't walk out to get life. He walks out because he has life. We get this backwards. We think, I'm going to clean myself up first. I'll fix myself. Then I'll come to Jesus. Jesus says, come out right now. Life first, change second. Some of you think I'm too broken. I've failed too much. Lazarus has been dead 4 days. There is never no too far. There is never no too late. This isn't just conversion, it's renewal. Some areas of our life, they do feel dead at times. We may feel spiritually dry, emotionally numb, relationally strained. We try harder. But remember, Jesus gives life first. Then effort matters. You don't walk to become alive. You walk because he has made you alive. That's grace. That's hope. That's freedom. When Jesus speaks, even what is dead must come back to life, because new life begins with his call, not our effort. So after Jesus speaks, after the tomb is broken, after death loses its grip, John tells us simply, the man who died came out. Don't rush past that. The man who had died came out of the tomb. He doesn't stay in the darkness. He doesn't remain where he was. He doesn't hide in the shadows of what used to define him. He comes out. He's alive, he's walking, and he's seen. He is no longer a memory, no longer a funeral story, no longer a sealed tomb. He is living proof that Jesus' word has authority over death. And this miracle is public. There is no debate. There is no confusion, no need for explanation. A dead man is walking, and when Jesus gives life, it shows. You cannot resurrect someone quietly. You cannot call someone out of death and keep it hidden. When Jesus speaks life into a soul, there has to be evidence, not perfection, not instant maturity, but movement. Breathing, responding, turning, and life shows up. Lazarus didn't go in the way he came out. He went in dead, he came out alive. And that's what happens when Jesus saves a person. Desires begin to change. Priorities begin to shift. Hope returns where despair once lived. Direction turns where wandering once ruled. Convictions awaken where numbness once settled. Not perfectly, not instantly, but genuinely. There is a pulse where there was none before. But still, Lazarus is alive, but he's still wrapped. But notice something tender and honest in the text. Lazarus is alive, but still in grave clothes. He's changed, but unfinished. He shuffles, he's restricted, he's awkward. He can't fully move yet. And he's alive. That's Christianity. Life first, maturity later. Regeneration happens in a moment. Growth takes a lifetime, and growth is messy. Sometimes you don't stride out of the tomb. You hobble. I had to pretend I had an injury. Sometimes you don't run in victory. You shuffle in grace, and Jesus still calls it life. Jesus invites others in. Then Jesus gives it another command. Unbind him and let him go. Notice he doesn't say to Lazarus, he says it to the crowd. Jesus could have removed the grave clothes himself. I mean, think about it. He spoke galaxies into existence. He just called a dead man back to life, but he chooses to use his people. That's not weakness, that's design. Life comes from Jesus. Freedom grows in community. Only Jesus gives life. Only Jesus saves. But oh boy, does he use his church to help people walk in freedom. That's discipleship. That's love. That's church. And we need each other's help to unwrap. We don't raise the dead, but we help the living learn to walk. What are our modern grave clothes? Today, they aren't linen strips. They're old habits. They're deep wounds, hidden addictions, lingering shame, fear that whispers at night, bitterness that won't loosen its grip, false beliefs about who God is and who we are. Jesus saves, but we still carry things. And we need help. We do not need condemnation. We do not need gossip. And we do not need distance. We need help. This is the church's holy work. And get this, the church is not a museum for perfect people. It's a recovery room for resurrected people. And we don't stand back and critique their shuffle either. We come close to them, patiently, lovingly, faithfully. Unwrapping is slow. Unwrapping is something uncomfortable. Unwrapping requires gentleness, but it's holy work. Every time you pray with someone, every time you sit and listen, every time you refuse to give up on a struggling brother or sister, you're helping remove grave clothes. Some of you feel discouraged. Growth feels slow. Victory feels partial. Freedom feels incomplete. Remember this, Lazarus did not sprint out of the tomb. He shuffled, and Jesus still calls it life. Some of you are still wrapped. You are saved, you are loved, you're called, but struggling. And Jesus says, let them help you. That's not weakness. That is wisdom. Hear this very carefully. Isolation keeps grave clothes tight. During COVID, all of us started watching church online. We stopped meeting in person. We need to be in person. We need each other because community loosens those grave clothes. But with that said, there's a question I ask myself all the time. Is there evidence of Jesus' life in me? Not perfection, but movement. I am not perfect, but I ask myself that question all the time. Is there movement? Have I changed? Am I different than I was 5 years ago? And then ask, who helped unwrap me? Who was patient with me? Who prayed with me when I didn't know how? And now, who am I helping? Yes, because resurrection life, it's meant to multiply. Church, hear it again. When Jesus speaks, even what is dead must come back to life. And when life comes, it becomes visible. And it grows best in loving community. I cannot stress church community enough and the importance of being together enough and living life together enough. So now, I told you the story about Noah driving with gloves on, and I'm sure when you see him in May, you might remind him of this story. He was nervous, he was scared, his hands were sweating. And Denise kept saying, I'm right here, trust me, you got this. And little by little, the gloves came off. But here's the thing. Noah didn't become confident because the roads changed. The traffic didn't disappear. The risk didn't go away. What changed was who he trusted. That's exactly what happened at Lazarus' tomb. The grave didn't change. Death was still real. The stone was still heavy. But Jesus stood there and he spoke. And when he spoke, everything changed. Church, this is what John wants us to know. When Jesus speaks, even what is dead must come back to life. When Jesus speaks, even what is dead must come back to life. Some of you walked in today standing in front of a tomb, a dead relationship, a dead dream, a dead season, a broken heart, a mental health battle you're tired of fighting, and you sealed it up. You said it's over, it's late, it can't change. But Jesus has been standing there the whole time saying, trust me. Roll the stone away. Listen to my voice. Some of you need to hear his voice. For the first time, come out. Come out of sin. Come out of shame. Come out of spiritual death. Come into life. And some of you need to hear it again. You are not finished. Jesus is not done with you. There is still life. Many of us, we may feel wrapped in grave clothes, and that's okay, because you are alive. And God is still unwrapping you. Think about that. God is always unwrapping you. Until that day you breathe your last breath, God is unwrapping you. Let us pray.